So tell us why you've written 18 books. Like, why? That is, you could go out and you can take on one-on-one clients. You could go out, you could speak at these big tours. Why books?
Low self-esteem. I started writing books when I was 26, 27. I was working with doctors, and as a 27-year-old, I needed to get in the room, and I figured if I write a book, they'll give me some respect. There'll be something. How do you compete when you're younger? So I was smarter than a lot of people, but when you're 26, you're 26. So for all of you who are 24 and 30 and 26, there's something to how do you sell to people who are above you? You need to have some credibility. And so I started writing books to get that credibility. Now, we were working with a niche of physicians, and what turned out was in my business plan competition at UCLA, I was a finalist. I was the only person who actually started a business in my entire cohort, 330 people. And we didn't raise money. Everybody got money but us in the finals because they said we had an implausible concept. Doctors you're never going to get past the gatekeepers to get to physicians. So turns out 18,000 doctors called my office over the next 10 years. And it built one of the biggest financial practices for physicians in the country. And it was because we wrote books and spoke at conferences. And when we wrote books, we wrote articles talking about the things that were in the books. People said, you're never going to get those magazines, you're never going to get published. But we went to all these throwaway journals talking about gastroenterology and endoscopy and gynecologic oncology, which I obviously know nothing about. And we'd be the only financial article in the magazine. So it's all this clinical stuff and then our finance article. And it turned out doctors actually wanted to know about money. And so they would call us. So we put ourselves out in a niche. This is our target market. This is what we do. And we had books, and then we got invited to speak at conferences. And it turns out, this is shit luck, it turns out that in medicine, the two greatest compliments you can get is to have your abstract published and to present your abstract. So you do research. So when you write, the person who wrote it must be an expert. And when you speak, the person who speaks must be an expert. So this is probably my 2,500th presentation in my career. And so it's starting to get smooth. But you just get in front of people and then you could create activity from being live. And so we had great credibility. So we'd write a book and then write a book and update it and update it. So it went from doctors to business owners, all finance, tax, asset protection, all money stuff. And the big push was always, look how effing smart I am. Because I know about all these different things. So that's where I started. And it worked out great. And then it got to a point where I was like, well, I don't want to be the smartest guy anymore. I had a life-changing situation. We've all had them. Family members, health, all divorce, not wanting to live anymore. I mean, all kinds of good stuff. And then I thought, I don't want to be the smartest guy in the room anymore. I want to be the most vulnerable person in the room. And it was at that point that my life changed dramatically, where the talk went from, let's be really smart, to the text from Dimitri about the book was, I had chills. And the text from my niece, who's 24, I had chills every single chapter I read it, which is a real big bar for me to set before I hand you the book. I should have told you after. But so at first it was, let me give this to people so they can figure out what's important to them, and then if they call me, the ideas become theirs. Mm-hmm. And so really for me, it was a way to connect with people without having to spend a lot of time letting them learn the things, figure out what they want, finding a way to communicate with masses. So for me, the books was just and I was a math major, so it makes all the sense in the world that I'm a writer and a speaker. So,
but you bring up some good points, because as we're here to learn more about content, a lot of times we focus on being the smartest person in the room, being the one that's the authority figure on social media and in our content, and it's so important to be vulnerable, to be a normal person so that you can really connect with your audience. And Roger, you'll hear Roger say a lot, I don't want to steal his thunder there, but he says in every one of these, like, know where your audience is, but I implore you to know who your audience is. And to do that, a lot of times they have to know who we are, not just what we do. And I think Chris does that well. He started out in the dinosaur ages when there wasn't social media, but now it's just more important than ever because, you know, on social and on your content, people want to know not just what you do, but really who you are. And I think you do a great job of that in your books as well.
Thank you. Well, the big thing is whatever you do, nobody gives a shit what you do or what you sell. They care about how what you do is going to help them. And that really is people said, how did you get here? And I said, it's not about having the answers, it's about asking great questions. And if you can ask great questions, and then most importantly, which I tell my teenagers, my wife will chuckle, I'm sure, or fall out of her chair, like ask questions, then listen. Like the second part is the hard part, like ask the question and then listen. So how is it that I'm on the board of a medical school and I'm not a doctor? Like I'm in medical school, I'm on the board of a medical school, I'm not a doctor, I'm not from the state, I've never lived in the state. And they have me on their board. And I would argue that I'm one of two extremely invaluable people on that board, more so than the other 18 people. And I'm sure the dean would say the same thing. Maybe not publicly, but with the politicians that are on that board. But the point is ask the questions and just feel what is going on. And if you ask the questions, so much comes. My dad was a great salesperson, said 2 ears, 1 mouth, listen twice as much as you talk. And which is ironic for me to say as I'm talking and all of you are very quiet. But you should be asking questions and then ask the questions and the answers will come. If you ask the questions, if you survey people, all the answers are coming from that. So if you ask, I mean, I do surveys and I have assessments and I'll give you all of them. And there's so much comes from that to let people, usually when I do a talk, I start off with an assessment, which all of you will get in the book. And I will use 7 or 8 minutes of a 1-hour keynote to say, take this quiz. And then let's use that as context for the rest of the talk. So try to make it about, we don't have time for that. Tia said we can't do that.
Shannon.
So I like to control things, but Tia controls things more than I do. So it's her show and her building, so it's her rules. So much of this comes from if you ask the questions and you find out where people are, you will find yourself in a good place to meet them where they're going to be. So in social, my big thing is, I mean, how many people have ever caught a train, have taken a train? Okay. Did you chase the train down the track to get it? Just once. Just once? So how did you get on the train? You went to the platform when?
When I needed to take it.
Before it got there, right? So this point of you can chase things or you can be places where people are going to be. Tonight's the Stanley Cup Championship, Game 7. Wayne Gretzky said, "Everybody, why are you so much better than everybody else?" And he said, "People skate to the puck. I skate to where the puck's going to be." And so some of this is anticipating where are people going to be, but you need to ask questions to know where are they going, what do they need, what is it they want. The outcome is not making money, it's not getting followers, it's not getting likes. The purpose of that is, I mean, I walked away from my social media a while ago, and it was, I'm doing this to get to the person, to buy the second event, to buy the third thing, to buy the fourth thing, to get to the VIP client, to get to the max VIP client. And I was like, all right, the hell with that. It's $250,000, $2 million to work with me. And I have 34 people in the hopper with nothing at the bottom. I'm not working people up, I'm working top down. But it came from just ask the questions. And so find a really solid problem that somebody has when you ask the questions. And when you find a really serious, significant problem, it doesn't matter what, a mutual friend of ours and coach of a few people in the room once said to me, when I said, yeah, but my hourly fee though, what's my time worth? And he said, nobody gives a shit what your time is worth except you. They care what your time is worth to them. So find a really big problem you can solve and then extract some of the value to the problem. If I can help you make $1 million, like my whole business model now is nickels for quarters, quarters for dollars. Mm-hmm. Literally the conversation is, if I can save you $1 million, would you give me $250,000? And the answer is always, yes.
Yes, yeah.
Great. So I need to find people who have $1 million problems to justify the fee, right? So it starts with what's the value. So just changing that dialogue of where you are, I mean, that's something that for me has been invaluable in the last 6 months.
And you've touched on some good points because people get into the business that they love. You know, a chef may start a restaurant, right? A doctor knows how to be a doctor. He doesn't necessarily know financials. He doesn't necessarily know marketing. or how to market himself. And so I think that's important too, is that you work with so many different people in different industries, different, all high level, but at doing completely different things. And you're able to still solve their needs with your skill set and knowledge. When you come across doing that through your books and through content, you're really good at speaking to just Madeline, even though you're speaking to the room, right? Speaking to just me, even though you're speaking to the room. How did you perfect that as you started talking to different clients in different industries? I think a lot of times us as entrepreneurs, we lean towards people that we know their industry a little bit because we feel like we need to know a little bit about their business, not just what we do. And I think you've done a great job at knowing who you are and what you offer and being able to offer that to people in any industry. What are the lessons you can teach us so we can do the same thing?
There's a bunch of questions in there. There's a lot of questions in there. Some of it is practice and just asking a lot of questions and talking to a lot of people. So it is perspective. Some of that is perspective. And so you asked me how I do it, how can they do it, how did I make the transformation? There was one other question in there too. The transformation happened after I sold my company. I sold my company, then I got kicked out of the company that had promised to pay me millions of dollars for years. And then they kicked me out and I spent 4.5 years in federal court and spent $750,000 trying to get my money back. That was not fun. But then I had this moment, my younger sister died, my parents were diagnosed with terminal cancer, I had a bunch of things happen. But when you talk to someone and that person gets goosebumps or gives you goosebumps, or you see the eyes get huge, or someone's leaning into you, there's a few people in there I can see nodding heads, like that's awesome feedback. It's so much more powerful than the social stuff, not to derail like the purpose why we're here, but if you go live is where you learn. Like that's where you get the feedback that is invaluable. Go talk to people. Get live, test your thing out, see what happens, and try it. And if it goes wrong, who cares? But make that personal connection, and then you can tell the story of the connection, and then all of a sudden the other stuff works. But this book I have, there's so many stories. There's a ton of stories about my own life, and there's stories about my family, and there's stories about my parents, and there's stories about my clients, and there's stories about people I've worked with. So it's all stories which make it real, because it is. Like these aren't the hypothetical Steve. Like Steve's a real guy, and Steve's a jackass, and that's why he's in the book. So there's, but that's the story. Don't be a Steve. But the not that Steve. But the sorry Steve. But the
pick another name.
Pick another name. That's right. So anyway.
to bounce off that, you can do Q&As live on social media, which Gary Vee. That was the advice that he gave me. Like, go live on social media, do more Q&As because you're going to learn what your audience wants. And so you're talking about live in person, but you can do the lives as well, whether it's on LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever your following is, and ask them. Get to know your audience on those live Q&As and get to know what they want, and it makes you just be able to deliver your services even better. And then I want to ask you about the elephant in the room, which is a giraffe. So a lot of your books are centered around giraffes. Why? Why the giraffe?
Why the giraffe? The giraffe is the only animal that evolved to become more vulnerable. Yep, that face, that's why I do this. So I love it. No, that's a great. So every animal, the neck is, there's predators and there's prey. The predators eat the prey. And the way that the way every animal does kill its prey is through asphyxiation. So most cases that's biting the neck and stopping the breathing. So the neck is the most vulnerable place. So whether you're a tortoise and you can pull the head inside the shell, you're a porcupine and you have quills, you're a reptile, one of the many toads that secretes poison on the back of their neck, all the spotted animals, all the ones that have camouflage so you can't see the neck, and when they're in groups you can't tell where one animal ends and where another one starts. Some can burrow underground so you can't get to them. Some can climb trees so you can't find the neck. The giraffe has this giant 6-foot neck. So as a result, it's more vulnerable than any other animal. But what's the trade-off? The trade-off is the giraffe can see what others can't, and it can reach what others won't. And who would like that in their business? So as I looked into the giraffe, there's all kinds of cool things. The fur is a pattern like fingerprints. No two are the same. You have 14 lessons in the Be the Giraffe book. 14 lessons, which are super cool things, none of which you knew. Well, maybe you knew 1, 2 if you're, 3 if you're a zoology major. But there's a lot of cool things about giraffes in there. And then so the 14 lessons, and then how do you take those lessons, apply them to your personal life to get more, and then how do you apply them in business? And so this thing came to me as a vision of the giraffe. I started using it as a logo 7, 8 years ago, and I have just continued to go deeper and deeper into it. And my wife has given me things where you go meet with the zookeeper and hang out with the giraffes. I have not ridden one. That wouldn't be cool for the giraffe. But there's just so many cool things about that, being more vulnerable. That is the key to everything, trying things you wouldn't. The lessons of breaking free from the herd and avoiding the masses and the asses and surviving the drop. And there's so many cool things in there. The way they feed. When you read the Feed Differently chapter, that is the one that will change your life with your clients, I promise you. Because there is a super unique relationship between the giraffe and its food source that no other animals have anywhere in the world. And you should strive to do that. You want to strive to become so uniquely invaluable to your client in a way that no one else is. And if you are, you're good. How to be so uniquely invaluable to your client, whoever that is, solving whatever problem that is. If you can be that uniquely invaluable person, product, service, do that. And so that's doing the things other people wouldn't do, whether it's giving the $100 or the $1,000 or whatever that gift is, or going the extra mile. What's that thing? And I backed into that in my career where I was in financial services. All financial service products are commodities. Insurance, investments, legal structure. They're all the same. But how do I sell more than everybody else? And it was because I always did something else for my clients. So I would solve some other problem, and then they're like, oh, I'll just give you the commodity business. So you do something that's worth $5,000, $10,000, $50,000, and then they give you something that's worth 20 times that. And so...
And you're great at that. So Chris has been helping us here at Stella, and I had a client. Chris will tell you I have control issues. I say you can be controlling without it being an issue. But we were walking into this meeting. We flew down to San Angelo, and I said, okay, here's how it's going to go. It was myself, Chris, one of my salespeople, and my assistant. And I said, this is how it's going to go. We're going to sit down. I'm going to introduce y'all. I'm going to do this, and then this will be your cue. I've got it all lined out. And we sit down at the table, I introduce who Chris is, and my client instantly goes, so let me ask you a question. And then for the next 10 minutes, Chris takes over the meeting. It did not go the way that I said it was going to go. But by the end of that 10 minutes, this guy realized he had almost twice as much money to buy a jet as he thought he did.
I found some money.
Yeah, and it literally took 10 minutes. And that just came from one question, him listening, and then knowing where to implement his skills.
You introduced me very well, though. It wasn't locked. No, you set it up well.
Yeah. So I think you're really good at knowing not only who you are, what you do, but like you said, that listening skill. And I want to ask you, for everyone in this room who are all successful and varying degrees of success, as we move forward and try and make our money do the most for us. I say that I want to make money in my sleep, but I did not buy a car wash. I bought this private jet company, so that's clearly a lie. But for those of us who want our money to make more money for us and want to take the next steps in our billionaire path, what advice would you give us? Other than reading your book, we got that already.
If you can find somebody who's more successful, more interested in your success than you are on your way. So for example, this client that Tia sent me, I'm going to bill him $500,000. And I'm going to save him $5 million. But Tia really wants that because he's going to buy an $8 million jet from Tia. So Tia needed me at that meeting more than I needed me at that meeting. And he needs me at that meeting even more than Tia. And so this idea of finding value, there's no problem with becoming a billionaire. It's perfectly fine to have that goal. The problem is most people haven't done the calculus. And frankly, it's actually algebra. It's not that complicated. You can make $1 billion if you can create $10 billion of value for other people. You can't do it because you're pretty, because you use great filters, because you know how to do content. It's going to ultimately come from you've created value. So you can have $1 billion if you create 5 to 10 billion of value. The 5 to 10x is about the right number. Create the value, you get it. If I can make you $5 or $10, you'll give me $1. Like, we know that works. Like, that math always works. And so the way that you do that is figuring out who needs you more than you need them. Like, if you can find that person, you will always have wind in your sails. Like, the person who needs you to be there because you provide a service to them. So is there an indirect person? If you're doing health-related stuff, there's a lot of people here doing mental health and coaching. Find the people who are paying for their own health insurance. Like, now you have the corporations who are interested in their people actually being healthy because they have to pay for all the days off and all the other stuff. Find something different. So some of this is finding somebody so you're not pushing. If you're the only one working, it is a fucking grind. Every day you get up, you push the really big rock up the really steep hill and you hope it doesn't roll back over you. And then it rolls down, and the next day you get up and you do it again. But if there's somebody else who's pushing for your success because you add value to them, I'm on the board of 8 companies, like the 8 founders all, like, you know, in some ways they may bring me in to help raise capital, or help them close a deal or something else. Like, there's something moving for you, but it's more than just the social. It's the finding the person who needs you, desperately needs you to be successful because you help them. When they started making huge money on computer chips, it was, well, people who, I'm going to sell my chips, my Intel Inside, to the computer company who needs chips, but they're out selling computers all the time, so let them do the retail. I'm on the inside making all the money with no advertising expense. That's a good model. Right? So some of this is you got to find somebody who's more interested in your success than you are so that they're interested. Tony, my partner in the striped shirt, checkered shirt, struck a deal with the bank. The bank's trying to grow. So now the bank is buying our book, the new book, Giraffe Money Essentials, so because they said, we're into financial wellness. We're like, great, so we went and wrote a book. And now they just bought 2,500 copies, which paid for our entire 10,000 book print run. But they're going to hand the books out, which is then going to push us, but it's solving their problem of how do you help educate your people to drive business, which is going to drive plenty of business back to us. So it's finding those cool deals which come from asking. So it's finding that unique path. And I would say in finding your unique path, don't say anything about your business that somebody else would say. When I'm doing marketing and innovation workshops for companies, if your competitor can say it, don't say it. Because it's useless. It's useless to everybody. Bank of America says that there are global financial services with high touch. I give anybody $100 if you can get a live person at B of A on the phone in 10 minutes. Exactly. But they think that they're small market. If you talk to Price Waterhouse, they say a small market company is any company less than $250 million of revenue. Any of you have $250 million in revenue? Right. So like it's all perspective. So try to figure out what's that unique thing you do. It's either what you do, who you do it for, or how you do it. It has to be different. So when you're asking those questions, what problem do you solve? Who do you solve it for? Do they know it's a problem? And how is your solution better than what everybody else does? What problem do you solve? Who do you solve it for? Do they know it's a problem? Because if they don't, you have to make 2 sales. So that's not good. Who's your client? What problem do you solve? Who do you solve it for? Do they know it's a problem? And why? And how is your solution better than everybody else's? If you can't answer those 4, it doesn't matter how much you feel, how beautiful you are, or how well you sing, you're going to struggle to get clients because you need to have those 4 things figured out. So I'd say that's the thing before we come in tomorrow. Know those questions. What problem do you solve? Who do you solve it for? What is the next one?
Do they know it's a problem?
Do they know it's a problem? Thank you very much.
And what's the solution?
And how's your solution better? Right? So it's got to be better because if you save somebody $1 on $1 million problem, it's not interesting. If you save them $1 on a $2 problem, that's very interesting. Right? Who's your client? What problem do you solve? Who do you solve it for? Do they know it's a problem? And how are you different?
Now I want to open up for 2 questions for Chris from you guys. Anybody have a question you'd like to ask while you have this opportunity?
Chris, so I know you gave your it was 5 baselines, right? As far as like the problem, how do you solve it, who's your client?
Yes.
It's 5
What problem do you solve?
Right.
Who do you solve it for?
Right.
Do they know it's a problem? How are you different?
Right. So it's 4. In knowing that, how does a salesperson get to understand those aspects of a client and knowing who they are and if they can solve those problems? Because granted, yeah, they're saying that, but most people, when it comes to sales, they aren't efficient enough to understand those aspects. So how do they get to the point where they're understanding how to sell and who to sell to and what product?
There's a lot of questions in there too. The biggest mistake that I see companies, has anybody here ever taken a sales job at a company? What's the first, so you get there, you go to the HR, they give you all the sensitivity training and teach you this is how we do stuff and this is the system. After you get through that, what's the next thing they have you do?
Sign up for healthcare.
And after that, what's the first training they give you at a big company if you're in sales?
Well, I think there's a multitude of, some companies they'll give you a script and some companies they'll just throw you straight out there once you understand their systems to get straight to selling versus as a salesperson understanding who you are, what your strengths and weaknesses are, and then actually giving you like a mental evaluation as far as from a sales tactic of what benefits you and how to actually sell products.
So I agree with you. And I would say it's the product sale that is the first thing. This is what we do. This is our thing. This is what we sell. Here are the features and benefits. This is it. You understand the software. You understand the widget. You understand the jacket, the fabric. You understand the horsepower. You understand all bullshit. Because somebody knows that stuff.
Absolutely.
It's not what that thing is. It's what that thing does for the other person. So this thing should start with questions. I actually have some sales stuff. I'll give you guys the PDF if you sign up. I've actually got 101 questions to ask your clients. So you can have it. And it's just things to get to know them and ask just what's going on. Why are you here? Why are you here? Who have you worked with? What did you like? What didn't you like? You know, you took the meeting, so obviously you're not super jazzed about whatever you're doing. So just ask the question, where are you? What's working? What's not working? So some of that just comes from ask the questions and listen. Or ask if you can record the interview. Or but there's something to getting them to ask because nobody cares about the thread count. It starts with, my sheets are itchy, my sheets are too hot, I'm going through menopause, I'm going through this. Whatever the thing is, like what's going on and what problem do we have? So people just don't ask. I get it that it takes time to get around, but if you ask the questions, you can actually have meaningful conversations. And I would say, when you guys get a chance, talk to Tony during the break. I mean, I'm throwing him under the bus a little bit, but like he's been in financial services for 20 years, and some of these conversations we had completely changed the way he asked questions, which he would say changed the quality of the conversations you had. And so some of that is just have good quality conversations. Why are you here? So you're talking to me. Like I've had people say, why should I hire you? And I say, I don't know, you're in my office. Like you came here, I didn't drag you here. Like you're not chained to the desk. Like what's going on?
Yeah.
So I think the big question becomes ask the questions and start. And it's better for them to come back with, because if you're in the home office or you're in your place and you have salespeople out doing some work for you, trying to generate leads, you know what you do. I don't need somebody to tell them what you do because no one's going to tell people what you do better than you are. You need to know who the hell is this guy coming to my office and what's going on. So the conversation isn't, don't try to be me. Go ahead and give me the information about the person who's coming so I have some idea where I'm going. Mm-hmm. We went to this meeting. She told me the guy had a company and he did some outfitting and he did stuff. No idea what the revenue was. Thought maybe the revenue is $5 million, $10 million. 10 minutes in, we find out it's $60 million. I was like, we're good. I know a little bit about manufacturing. He said 10% margins. He said 28. It was like, boom.
And what we did with him, which is something that when I've done sales trainings, I always tell people, if you're going to their business, the best way to get to know them, their problems, what they love, what they're proud of, how to help them is ask them for a tour. Ask them for a tour of their business, their facility, and then just listen, just be quiet, and they will tell you everything you need to know about how you can benefit them. So we definitely did that with him as well.
And what's your sales reps be working on daily in the sense of sharpening their...
Talking to people. Good God, go talk to people. Get the hell out of the office. Work from home, yeah, somebody else is home all the time. Like go get out and I want you to have 10 conversations a day. Just go talk to people, ask them what's working. You know what questions to ask, and then you start getting their response. Great, here's what I would go back with. Or, wow, that's a great question. I can't answer that. It's okay to say no. I don't know that, but Steve knows. Steve's not always bad. Steve knows the answer. You bring it to Steve. But so that question is, you've got to get out there and just have the conversations. And if they're having the conversations, they'll know what pushes people, and be okay with, I don't know the answer. I give that, like, I don't know. I'll find out though, or I'll try to find out. So that's just go live and find out what they're upset about. This really bothers me. Why? Mm-hmm. Like, you don't need to know manufacturing, but you can walk through and go, so which part of this did you build first? Why did you build that? Could you have given that to somebody else? Well, I could have, but the margins with it. So just let them talk about their thing, and they go, wow, this is the bane of my existence. Well then, okay, what's that about? Right? So you want to figure out if you know what the pain point is, then you know what to address. Quick, you can get to that. And so get them out there talking to people. They don't need to know what you do. They just need to know a story or two. I don't know, Tony, what do you tell clients when they're like, you need to meet me? Like, what do you say?
This guy solves really difficult problems in really unique ways, and you'll get it when you meet him.
That's it. Like, what the hell does that mean?
I was about to ask you that.
Right. So then what does that mean? Like what? Or someone will say, like what? For who? How big? What have they done? Like, give them the hook. Like my elevator pitch, I do a lot of things, but the elevator pitch is, I save people millions of dollars. They're like, well, if you save them millions, they must have millions, because you wouldn't save millions for somebody working at the car wash, maybe the one who runs the car. So, but it's you know what I mean? So just get out there and have that conversation.
And Chris, you keep using the word live. You've used it several times. And in old school, which a lot of us have been there, I won't point anybody out. Before we had social media, we had numbers that said, for every 1,000 emails you send, every 100 phone calls you make, and every 10 live, if you will, meetings you have, you'll get one sale. So where do you want to spend the most of your time? And now, as we're into social media, all of that stuff again, and I don't want to take credit for this myself. It was Gary Vee who told me, you've got to start doing those live meetings with your audience on social media. You can kind of put all those together now, because now you don't have to just do email, just do calls, just do face-to-face. You can do it all with these social platforms. So yes, get out, have these meetings face-to-face, but also, again, with the live aspect, engage live, ask questions live, and I think you get a lot more out of it. I think you keep touching on that live, and I just, there's, back in the day, there was only one way to do live, and that was go knock on the door and help you get past the gatekeeper and go in the building. Now we have so much more access to people to bring them value.
I agree.
I also feel like the access, people are so used to the access we have now that it's kind of taken for granted. Kind of like walking. You don't realize how important it is to your paralyzed. So understanding the power of social media and what she just said is very, very important, because it does make millionaires, and it has made more millionaires in any industry, like lottery, basketball, rap. Social media has created more millionaires in the last decade than. And I'm talking universal. I don't care what race you are, what religion, what your sexuality is. You can literally become a millionaire.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I want to throw one thing that's a little counter to that. Was I met Jack Canfield in an event. We talked. We hit it off. I'd see him in events every 6 months, and we talk about doing something together. And this went on for years. And then I did his Train the Trainer class, and I actually paid the full boat for his most expensive thing. It was $20,000 to sit in the room with him. And he's like, why are you even here? It's like, because we've been talking about something, and I just thought I'd meet you in the middle. I'd see all your stuff up close, see how it is. I have no interest in doing any of this, but I'm going to come see you, and by the end of these 2 weeks, you'll know to work with me or not.
So you paid him $20,000? I
did. Okay. I've done it. I did, and separately with Jay Abraham, I did a deal with Jay where I was in his room, and he's like, why are you here? And he said, I produced his movie, I'm sorry. So I put up a ton of money to executive produce Jay Abraham's movie. I was in his office. He said, what do you think is going to happen? What do you think is going to happen with the movie? And I said, I don't give a shit about the movie. And he said, why are you here? And I said, I bet $20,000 that if I spent an hour with you, you'd want to spend a day with me. And he said, interesting story. Once upon a time, I met Jack Welch, CEO of General Electric, and I went into the airport. And he got off a plane, and I knew he was going to be there going to this event. And I opened up my bag and said, Mr. Welch, you don't know who I am. My name's Jay Abraham. I figure your time is worth at least $10,000 an hour. The ride's 50 minutes to go downtown for the conference. If I could be in the cab with you, and he opened up his bag, I have $10,000 for you. And Jack Welch gave him 50 minutes, talked to him, and then didn't take the bag. Jay did take my 20 grand. But when I was done, Jay said, mission accomplished. Definitely talk to Destiny on the way out, and you'll get some time. And so I did that, got a moment. I sent a pitch to Canfield. He didn't open it. On Jack's list of things to do, his bucket list, was climb Machu Picchu. My wife and I went to Machu Picchu, and we climbed Machu Picchu. And then we climbed up to Huayna Picchu, which is the peak above Machu Picchu looking down. And out of my bag, I pulled out my giraffe t-shirt, put it on, and I pulled out Jack's book. The cover only because it's heavy and it's a long hike. But so I just the cover. And I have a picture of me on the top of Huayna Picchu looking down with me holding his cover. I took that picture, my wife took the picture, and then I blew it up, 8.5 by 11. I sent my proposal for us to work together in a priority mail box. I took that picture, I blew it up, I put it on the box, taped over it, and then wrote in Sharpie, when are you going to climb Machu Picchu, and what other things can we do together on your bucket list? He opened that and read that proposal, and I became the VP of Strategic Partnerships for Jack Canfield. Because while everybody's sending emails all the time, I sent a box with a picture of me holding his book in a place in the world he wanted to go to. And so if you want to get somebody's attention, send something in the mail.
Great story.
Fuck yeah, all the time. There's a thing called the post office. I'll show you on the way out. And I send these, it's $9.80.
I sent support staff.
You send them a lot of them.
I have to tell you, like this, I've been at the post office every single day.
Yeah.
And bless, you don't want to go to South Lake
we'll
Post
get it.
Office.
Last question.
Every single day, mailing books that he is mailing to clients with personal notes in them that he's written.
And I always send two.
I got
One for you.
I got Chris's books, Be the Giraffe, before he did because of where I live in the country. And I told him, and he goes, awesome, I need you to go to the post office and overnight a book because he's going out of the country. He's one of Chris's favorite clients, and we're going to do amazing things with him.
Yeah.
But he was so touched that Chris sent him the book.
Before I got mine.
Well, it's going
And
back
to-
to what you said, doing the things that no one else would do.
Right, right.
That's how you separate yourself, by doing the things other people wouldn't do, whatever that happens to be. And I also send these books, and I send books to people and say, well, how many people here have kids? How many people here can pretty much buy anything you want for yourself? I always send things for the kids. Because I can buy anything I want, but if somebody sends something for my kid, it's a whole different story. So that is a way to people. So I will send books to people, some of my clients, and I'll say, here's one for you. Or I send them a book and say, give this to your kid just graduated college. I think she would really like this book, and I sign it to her. And I get a, hey, thank you so much. So like that's a thing. Like you find some way to connect with people on whatever that thing is. Do something for them. Or do something for somebody that they care about, or something for their charity, or something, right? Like that's way more, people are so happy you spent $12 on Girl Scout cookies. Like it's not the $12, it's the fact that you supported my kid.
True, true. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming. Can you tell everybody like where to find you on social media?
Sure. My LinkedIn is just Chris Jarvis. I happen to have that. My Instagram is Chris Ray Jarvis.
Tell them why.
As a joke, I set up Instagram when I was boycotting everything, and when I moved to Texas, my name is Christopher Raymond Jarvis. I'm named after my two grandfathers, Christopher and Raymond. And so when I handed somebody in Texas when I first moved here my license, they said, you have a license? And I handed it over, and the gentleman said, go by Chris Ray? It's like, no, I don't go by Chris Ray, and I never will. I'll go by anything. I'll answer, I have some college and grad school nicknames that I would answer way more than Chris Ray. No, I will not go by Chris Ray. So I sent up Chris Ray Jarvis as a joke to follow my kids, and now with 70-something thousand followers, I can't change it. So I'm Chris Ray Jarvis on Instagram. ChrisJarvis.me is the website. BeyondWealth.pro will be the financial firm, which should be up in the next couple weeks.
Can we get those
Revitalize
101
this Snapchat.
questions?
101 questions. You can email me at mail@chrisjarvis.me. Mail@chrisjarvis.me, or you can DM me at Chris Ray Jarvis on Instagram, and I'll email it to you. It's a PDF.
Awesome.
with the 101 questions. You're all going to get books, and they'll be in the back, and
They should snap you at the Dream Chicken.
they should. That's
Well,
I should
y'all be
do.
sure and reach out to Chris on the next break and get your book and make sure he autographs it for you. And thank you again
Thank
for
you.
being a guest for the second time on my podcast and for doing it here with our live audience.
Thank you.